Before I get started, I just wanted to thank Bud. He is so much more than a co-chair for this organization. We are so lucky to have his leadership and his wisdom contributing to MBEP, contributing to our region. And apparently we're not the only ones that think he's pretty cool, because he's getting an award in a couple weeks at the California Economic Summit as one of the 2016 steward leaders for the state. So let's give it up one more time for Bud. So good morning, buenos dias. I think we should keep going. Bonjour. Guten Tag. Let's see. Goedemorgen. I didn't just catch something that's Dutch. Konnichiwa. Who else has one? Buongiorno, of course. Linda, how could I forget that? Is that in Russian? Thank you. I tried that with Alexandra this morning and I couldn't quite get it. Konnichiwa. Well, okay, there you go. Oh, good. Rochelle, thank you. Well, good. I just thought we're in the language capital of the world, right? So let's start off with a little international flair. So thank you for that. So it's so great. Bud said that, I've been here just over a year. Last year, I probably knew about 2 people in the room. And this year, it's just so wonderful to look around and see so many people that I've been working with for the past 13 months now, I guess. And just really appreciate everyone coming and giving up a day to be here and this important conversation that we're going to have today. Because our theme for this conference is Catalyzing Community Well-Being. Some of you might be thinking, what's an economic development organization doing worrying about well-being? But as Bud mentioned, MBEP is not your typical economic development organization, because we focus on a triple bottom line, which is economic, equity, and the environment, to ensure we're good stewards of this place and of the people who live here. Our vision is a thriving region for all residents. So let's start by defining what we mean by well-being. It means you are in a state of good health, happiness, and prosperity. It means you have enough food on the table and enough income to provide for your family, not just exist. So I'm here to give you some insights into the state of the well-being of our region. But first, let's go back to the last state of the region. For those of you who were there, we were kind of smushed into the shamanade. And I hope you also remember the great content and conversations that happened at that event. We were thrilled with the response and had great feedback overall. But one thing kind of stuck with me. People asked me afterward, great event, Kate, but what's going to happen the rest of the 364 days of the year? How do you keep the conversation going? What's the ripple effect of the work that we do here? And who's kind of minding the store at the regional level when it comes to measuring regional outcomes? So the idea of a Monterey Bay regional dashboard was born. You'll see there's handouts on your table that will talk about that new tool. Now more than ever, we need to understand and proactively advocate for the needs of our region. Because what affects us, some of us, affects all of us. We are all connected, as this little cartoon illustrates. Whatever happens in Washington, it's imperative that we advocate strongly at the state and the regional level to ensure that our funding is not threatened on healthcare, on housing, on transportation, on immigration, and more. We are one region, cutting across city and county limits to share best practices, to learn from one another, and to take action. This is why MBEP exists, to catalyze change and make a positive difference in our communities. We have the Santa Cruz Community Assessment Project, or CAP report, you may be familiar with. We have the good work that's done in Monterey County, with Katie's leadership, with the impact report that they do there. So many of you will recognize the data points that we have as part of this new dashboard. And you may be familiar with your own jurisdiction standing. But this is the first time a regional lens is being applied to this data. With this new dashboard, you can easily see the regional roll-up as well as the county and the city data. We were inspired by the work that Applied Survey Research has done over the last 22 years for Santa Cruz County. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we had such a tool to assess the quality of life in our region? And perhaps one that was a bit less comprehensive, more of a snapshot, to communicate progress against 8 key domains that align with our vision for a thriving region for all residents. You can't change what you can't see, right? We want this to be a tool to engage all of us in the conversation and factually measure how we are doing each year in improving the state of our region. And not just talk about it, but take action. We have kind of an informal motto here at MBEP with the team that is, get her done. And that comes actually from the crew that we have working on our house remodel right now. I won't tell you the second part of that, maybe at the break. But we really believe now more than ever that taking action at the local and regional level is so very, very important. So this new Monterey dashboard, Monterey Bay Regional Dashboard, is available starting today on our website. It's an interactive platform that utilizes data currently available for all 3 counties. And we've tried to make it accessible, meaning that you don't need a PhD in order to figure out if a trend is good or bad. We'll be tracking them annually and creating a longitudinal perspective of our region. It was, as you can imagine, extraordinarily difficult to winnow it down just to 8 categories and 11 indicators. And there were some very intense and heated discussions about what should and shouldn't be included. And I want to say I realize we're taking a bit of a risk by putting this out there. It will stimulate lots of questions and perhaps some critique, which is kind of the point, right? We want to use this data to fuel conversations, to focus our efforts, to engage our members, our partners, and our policymakers and advocates from all over the region, and that's pretty much everyone in this room, to get involved and figure out how we can all help move these indicators in the right direction, building on a lot of the great work that's already happening in the region. There's no magic pill to solving all our community problems, but there is magic in us coming together to work towards solutions. I've seen it happen over and over again in the year that I've been here. The dashboard is also a framework to tell the story of our region, and the story of our region begins with who we are. We're a region that is 48% Latino, more than any other ethnicity. We're also a relatively young region, 17 years old or younger, with that 17% of our population. What does that mean? To me, that means potential for people to be contributing in positive ways to our community. But we need to make sure that we're preparing these young people properly. California is the 6th largest economy in the world. We are first in the nation economically. Yet only 43% of our state's 3rd grade students meet or exceed the state standards in English literacy. Regionally, that number is 31%. 31%. That means that we are failing 2 out of 3 kids to give them the most basic skills. Now, to be clear, this is not a blame game. It's a rallying cry to do something about those reading scores and about the fact that only 42% of graduating high school students are ready for college, meaning that they've met all CSU or UC standards. Now, there's some good news here in that this number is actually trending in the right direction. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a 33% increase. And that's thanks to the efforts of our hardworking educators and ongoing community efforts, like Bright Futures in Monterey County. You'll hear from Cynthia Holmsky later today. And the Santa Cruz County College Commitment, or S4C, and many, many others. We are making gains. And this doesn't mean necessarily that all high school students should go to college. There are many other pathways to career success and self-sufficiency. But regardless if they choose to go to college, to start their own businesses, to seek vocational training, we need all our graduating students to have the basic education that will increase their chances of success in life and in whatever career path they choose. Am I right? Because really, how does one get a job that pays a living wage if one does not have basic language, math, critical thinking skills, and some foundational technical skills? And a living wage in our region means that a family of 4, that's 2 adults and 2 children, will need almost $74,000 just to meet self-sufficiency standards. The actual median family income of that same family is pretty close to that. It's $78,000. So let's be clear, half of our region is at minimum self-sufficiency or above, and the other half is below. Clearly, we have more work to do. But it's not all doom and gloom. Our economy has recovered and remains relatively strong. Yay. And a quick shout out to Opportunity Fund, who is here in our marketplace today. Catalyzed by MBEP to come to our region, last year they made 76 loans for over $1 million in Main Street small businesses. And thank you. And the borrowers were 46% women, 59% minority, and 74% low or moderate income. Woo. Opportunity Fund is now supported by both the Santa Cruz County and Monterey County Community Foundations and the Packard Foundation. And ag tech is blossoming. The combination of tech and our biggest regional industry, agriculture, is taking off, thanks to visionary leadership from the City of Salinas, the Thrive Foundation, Taylor Farms, hackathons at our 2 universities, ag tech meetups that now take place regularly in Watsonville and Salinas, and the International Forbes Ag Tech Summit, which is coming back to Salinas again this summer for the 3rd year in a row. And yes, we have job growth, which is great. But which jobs are growing? Are they ones that lead to a living wage, that will allow our residents to achieve self-sufficiency? There is a titanic shift going on in our economy as we complete the transition from an industrialized economy to an information economy. And we're leaving people behind in this shift. As this graph demonstrates, on a national level, for those with a 4-year degree, their job prospects have grown 107% over the last quarter of a decade. But those with only a high school level education or below have declined 13%. Consider that gap. 107% growth versus a 13% decline. This just underscores how important it is that we all work together to affect systemic change to help close this gap and include more of our residents in the pipeline for more technical and information-based jobs that are present in every industry. I'm not talking about the guy that fixes your network or your neighbor that commutes to Google. I'm talking about jobs here in our region, in tourism, in agriculture, in finance, in healthcare, in education, and in government. So today, our panel will tackle this topic with some expert insights from a variety of perspectives. Community leader and executive director of Bright Futures, Cynthia Holmsky, who I mentioned earlier, will lead the discussion about a difference an education makes, the state of talent supply in the region, and gaps, and actions being taken toward improved education outcomes. Diana Jimenez from the County of Monterey will discuss upward mobility. Dr. Llewellyn from Hartnell College will talk about career pathways at Hartnell. And Nan Mikowitz, president of Dominican Hospital Dignity Health, will illustrate labor supply and demand from the standpoint of a large regional employer. At MBEP, workforce development is one of our key initiatives. So we've been investing a lot of time and resources in this area. We are part of a consortium that has brought Monterey Bay internships to the region and now has over 1,000 users. Little applause. And we know of almost 40 interns that have been placed through the website since February. And I say that we know of because we do hear anecdotally of other people that found their intern through our website that aren't necessarily registered on the website. I saw a big shout out to our partners, as you can see on their logos there. UCSC, CSUMB, Cabrillo, Hartnell, Community Foundation of both Santa Cruz and Monterey counties, and the Santa Cruz County Business Council. This type of collaborative effort makes progress against big objectives so much easier. And Career Coach is a powerful new customized web resource being brought to you by Bright Futures and MBEP that will be launching next quarter. This makes it easy for students to choose appropriate educational options aligned with promising locally available careers. You'll be hearing more about this from Cynthia. We're also partnering with Bright Futures to strengthen and align various career pathways. It's early days still on this initiative, but we're really excited about the enthusiastic response we've received so far, and we're working with many MBEP members and partners in the collaborative process of defining our region's unique career pathway perspective and incorporating national best practices that we can build on and learn from. And we're really excited about a new program called MBEP Scholars that we just launched in partnership with the Santa Cruz Warriors in 3 school districts, making Warriors tickets available to students who consistently attend or improve attendance at school. After all, the first step in learning is showing up, right? We're delighted that the initial launch of the program has resulted in immediate attendance gains at the schools participating, and this is really the ultimate win-win. Kids win because they do better academically, and just a 1% increase in attendance will result in hundreds of thousands of dollars for our local schools and funding. Yeah. Of course, we have to get real here for a minute because there's a huge inhibitor to being able to live here. And as we all well know, our region's housing costs are one of the highest in the nation. 49% of mortgage holders and 60% of renters spend 30% or more of their income on housing. That's a big chunk of change that's not going to food, to school supplies, to healthcare costs, to clothing. And we're not even talking about well-being. We're just talking about being. We know we need more affordable housing because once somebody is safely and securely housed, all sorts of good things increase and bad things decrease. So let's talk turkey. You know, it's a week after Thanksgiving and all. This chart demonstrates, based on national data, that the lowest income renters are facing the biggest housing shortage. It's a little bit of a busy slide, but trust me on this. It means that if you make more money, you have more options on where you can rent. And if you don't have a lot of money, you actually have half the amount of options. Severe shortage here in where we have the most in the rental housing for the lowest income and where we have the most work to do when it comes to making more rental housing available. So last April, we announced our new housing initiative. MBEP, along with our partners and members, is investing in specific areas that have been identified as gaps, places where we can add value, such as early project funding through our $10 million Monterey Bay Housing Trust, in partnership with the Housing Trust of Silicon Valley, engaging in the community through our advocacy platform, the MBEP Action Center, to ensure that we are promoting policies that increase housing and affordability, and through our employer-sponsored housing initiative, where we're playing a supportive role in the promoting of best practices and information sharing for employer-sponsored housing projects. You can learn more about these 3 parts of our housing initiative in the marketplace. So today, one of the most knowledgeable panels in the country is going to tackle this issue, led by CEO of Eden Housing, Linda Mandolini, a recognized national expert. Our panelists will each review a regional project that has been innovative and move the needle in terms of housing supply. Okay, so let's say we're safely housed. How do we stay healthy? With the Affordable Care Act in question, let's not go there, access to quality health care could be an even bigger issue for many of us in the region. Overall, this indicator is pretty good for most of us in the region. Santa Cruz County is doing pretty well, but right next door in Monterey County, the numbers are not so hot. So today we're going to consider the idea of health care more broadly, not just regarding physical health. When you do this, you realize how complex and interconnected health is with other indicators. One example is the term housing as health care, which you'll hear about from the man who I give credit to coining it, Dr. Joshua Bamberger. And you may be wondering why we have an electrical engineer by training, who is now the executive director of the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, and MBEP board member, Nina Simon, leading our health panel. Well, Nina brings a different lens to the topic and is an expert speaker, author, and moderator who will lead the discussion on holistic health. What factors do define personal well-being in our region? Next, we'll address an increasingly topical issue, the health of our rivers and watersheds. Does it get any more basic than having access to clean and pollutant-free water? Just ask the people of Detroit, right? The environment is always a key component in any conversation about regional well-being. So in this category, we'll be highlighting how efforts locally and statewide are creating the platform to improve our river environs and the importance of investing resources to activate and steward our rivers. Greg Pepping, Executive Director of the Coastal Watershed Council, will be discussing with Jeanette Tututile, I said that right, Lewis of the Big Sur Land Trust, the projects happening today to preserve and activate the Carmel and San Lorenzo rivers. During today's panel, you will learn how a thoughtful community conversation can lead to consensus for multi-stakeholder plans. Last on today's agenda, but certainly not least, is transportation. One of the hottest topics right now in both Monterey and Santa Cruz County, both passing tax measures last month to fund much-needed investments in our transportation infrastructure. Woohoo! If you didn't drive your own car here today, you know you are in a small minority. For the rest of us, that's because there just aren't many viable options, right? So Brian Jones from Alta Planning and Design will provide a roadmap for creating livable, walkable, and rideable communities. What policies promote these types of communities? How are other regions doing it? What are low-cost strategies for moving people more efficiently that we can implement now? We'll learn about some simple and innovative solutions. It's our last panel, so please don't miss it. I just wanted to mention briefly the two other domains that are not part of today's agenda, infrastructure and public safety. It's shocking to me that today there are still 21% of our residents that do not have internet connectivity. This is something that we all take for granted. I know I do. And this is why MBEP has prioritized ubiquitous broadband as one of our key initiatives. We're working closely with the Central Coast Broadband Coalition and other members and partners to ensure that all residents gain this access and to implement Dig Once policies with municipalities in the region, a draft copy of which is available here at the CCBC table in the marketplace. The Sunesis Backbone, a 91-mile fiber optic network from Santa Cruz to Soledad, gives us the potential for low-cost fiber internet connection throughout the region, including 68 unserved and 1,000 underserved census blocks along the corridor of the backbone. Most of the build-out is done with completion scheduled for next spring. A big shout out to Steve Blum at the CCBC and leaders like Jim Warner at UCSC, and to all the city and county level and private ISP efforts to make broadband services available in the region. It matters to every sector. Whether you're education, government, healthcare, nonprofit, agriculture, whatever, you need this, and we must have this to attract and retain new businesses to the region. Just like the Sunesis Broadband Project will enable service to underserved communities, so too has the expansion of programs like Digital Nest that will be expanding to Salinas next year after its successful launch in Watsonville 2 years ago. You can chat with the Digital Next folks in our marketplace next door. And Hartnell recently announced that Coder Dojo, its innovative K-8 program, computer programming curriculum pioneered in Salinas, will be available in all of South County and Castroville next year. Yay. And they just had, hot off the press news, I'm maybe stealing Will's thunder, a PBS segment that was done on them, so they're doing great work. And the topic of public safety is one of those that demonstrates more than any other the interconnectivity of all these domains. Because the data shows when someone is safely housed, healthy, able to support themselves, they are less likely to commit a crime. I mean, duh. So in Santa Cruz, where I live, unfortunately, property crime is rising. And I've actually had personal experience where I've seen how socioeconomic symptoms can drive someone to commit a crime. I don't want another single person to walk into their kitchen to find someone with a mental health and drug addiction issue stealing their stuff to support their drug habit. As a community, we need to do a better job of addressing the underlying issues that contribute to crime. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our wonderful dashboard sponsors, each of whom contributed funding and input to enable us to bring this new dashboard to life. They're partnering with us to move the needle in the right direction in each of these areas. A special shout out to Dignity Health Dominican Hospital, who is our dashboard presenting sponsor and is doing so much in our region to provide quality health care to all residents. And thanks also to ASR. They have a table in our marketplace if anyone wants to geek out on the data. It's important to understand that the purpose of this data is to provide an accurate picture of the challenges we face and the opportunities we have to affect them positively. I want to say, too, that if an indicator doesn't prove useful in motivating change because it's not as important as we thought, then we'll find a new one. So please, please, don't let any of these data points bring you down. Let them inspire you. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, but the whole idea behind MBEP is to collaborate for regional excellence. In other words, many hands and heads make light work. You all wouldn't be here unless you had hope and a strong belief that together we can and will improve things. Today, we'll highlight examples of excellent ideas, programs, groups, and individuals to inspire you. As you can probably tell, I'm pretty passionate about this work. And I will be personally available to you to answer questions and to get you involved in any way that I can help. Our theme today is catalyzing community well-being, and we believe in the power of this group of leaders to achieve great things. As I said earlier, our informal motto at Team MBEP is get her done. We want to encourage you all to think big, to join the conversation, to learn more about how you can contribute, and most importantly, to take action. I want also to strongly encourage you to meet someone new today, to start a new conversation, to find synergies and make connections, to find a new partner or partners to help with the work you're doing to improve the well-being of our region. It's on us, so let's get her done. Thank you.